Finally, I had to cut my toxic mom out of my life to protect my wife and our 5 kids, but she threatened to sue us for grandparents' rights, so I had no choice but to expose her cruelty to the whole family. I'm 41, a happily married dad of 5. My wife and I have been married for 20 years, and we both come from messed up, chaotic families. My wife's parents got divorced and were both heavy drinkers. Her dad passed away from liver failure, and her mom has chilled out a bit since she retired. My parents had a nasty, violent divorce when I was just a kid. My dad moved 10 states away to escape the madness, and my mom never changed. Because of our experiences with violent and unstable families, my wife and I have busted our butts to be the best parents and partners we can be. We've done everything possible to give our kids a perfect life. My wife coaches sports, and I'm a scoutmaster with the BSA. Our kids are healthy, involved, and have everything they need both physically and emotionally. And we've done all this despite our families, not because of them. My mom is just a terrible person. She abused me my entire childhood and kept being violent, bitter, mean, and aggressive towards me my whole life. I could go on for hours about the stuff she's done. She used the courts to ruin my dad's life for decades. Once he was gone, she turned her anger on me with physical and emotional violence. When I was 16, she kicked me out of the house and left me homeless. I had to bounce from place to place, trying to figure out where to live, all while trying to finish high school. I ended up staying with a guy who was about 4 years older than me, and I had to be in a sexual relationship with him just to have a roof over my head. I wasn't gay, I didn't want to be gay, and I had to go through something that broke me just to avoid sleeping on the streets. When I turned 18, I finally got a decent job and was able to escape that messed up situation to start fresh. My wife and I have worked our butts off to build a stable, middle-class life. We both went to night school for years to get our degrees, and now we've got good jobs and a house in the suburbs. Out of a sense of duty to our family, I tried to keep my extended family involved in our lives, setting strict boundaries between my mom and our kids. For the most part, she's been pretty stable for about 20 years. I say stable because we could have regular contact, about once a month without too much drama. She's never admitted to the abuse she put me through because she's incredibly selfish. Everything about our past has been left unsaid. Over the last 2 years, my mom has completely lost it. Her second husband left her to save his own health and sanity, and she's gone right back to being the cruelest and most bizarre person you can imagine. Every part of her life has been affected. She's calling the cops, suing him in family court, turning family members against each other, and trying to tell my kids why their grandfather is a jerk because of how she feels about him. When I saw this happening, I said, enough is enough, and took action. At the start of this year, I sent my mom a polite note asking her to rethink how she's been treating me and my family. When I say it was neutral and polite, I mean it. I checked it over like 5 times. She responded by calling me awful names like ungrateful piece of shit and screaming her head off at me on the phone. I blocked her number, then she did the same to my wife. So I emailed my mom and told her I wanted to keep my distance until she gets some help through therapy or her divorce mediator. Things were quiet for about 6 months. This morning, I woke up to a bunch of crazy emails from my mom saying she wants to see my kids for their upcoming birthday and that I have 24 hours to give her some dates or she'll drag me to family court. I'm like, what the heck? This woman is basically a schoolyard bully, always following me around and tormenting me until I'm ready to cry. The worst thing about a bully is that when you ask them to give you a break for even 5 minutes, they just see it as an excuse to ramp it up. I looked at those emails and thought, holy crap, this woman is totally out of her mind. Now, I know I mentioned in the title that she's suing me, but I work in the legal field and I know that until I get an official summons, I haven't actually been sued. So no, she's just threatening to sue me right now. Sorry for the exaggeration. But I'm stuck in the same weird, out-of-touch reality that everyone else in her life experiences. This crazy woman made me meet my dad at a McDonald's when we were kids for 2 hours every 2 weeks, as ordered by the court, while she sat outside in her running car. I could only see him like this because she hated him and didn't care how it affected her own kids. There were plenty of times when it hit 8 o'clock, and she'd come storming into the McDonald's, threatening to call the cops and have my dad arrested for kidnapping while yanking us out of the place by our arms. This is what she's capable of doing with family court. I had a full-on, hyperventilating panic attack on my office floor this morning. I've tried to stay respectful, mature, and make good decisions this whole time. My wife and I have a rock-solid marriage, and she's been with me 100% through all of this. I'm finding myself wishing that my mother would just die already and just please to leave me alone. She's like this inescapable bully that will never, never under any circumstance leave a person alone until she's proven that she can hurt them. I don't even care what she's experienced in her life. I just need to be away from her. So that's my true off-my-chest story. I've been living with this shame and fear and lingering self-hatred for 30-plus years, all while trying to be super dad and a great career man. I called a local family law practice today to get a referral. I'm going to ask them to send a demand letter to her to try and get her to back the hell off, but look at what this has come to. I have to shell money out of my own pocket to protect myself and my kids from my insane mother. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield sometimes. Ironically, the money I'm going to have to send to the lawyer for their retainer is money that I had earmarked for the kids to go to summer camp. So figure that one out. Thanks for letting me share my story with you. Just typing it out helps. If you're curious about any legal precedents that could give her threats some weight in my area, New York does provide an avenue for grandparents to sue for custody, although it would turn into a long, drawn-out legal fight that will cost me a lot of money and aggravation if she does. In general, the process is the punishment. I had to deal with family court and CPS, cops, etc. when I was 10 and my parents were getting divorced. If you wanted to see me literally pass out on the floor, you'd drag me back to family court. As for my mother having the financial means to sue for grandparents' rights, I've seen this woman use the courts to destroy my father for over 10 years. The answer is, who knows? I guess I'll just have to wait for a court summons to see what she will do. Chocolate Candybar _ It's really sad to read this, and I'm sure you know that. Would she sue you? This would more likely bring to her 40 years of horrors being exposed in court and her being denied to stay on the same planet as your kids. So I guess you're here just to vent, and yeah, you don't deserve this crap. And definitely, yeah, you're paying the price for being a good person. I hope life pays you and your mom back. All my good vibes are with you. United Manor 20, you should have plenty of proof to get a restraining order, and don't worry about her getting grandparents' rights. She would have to have a well-established relationship with the children already, which doesn't sound like that's the case. They don't just hand out grandparents' visitation rights because they're grandparents. I would definitely change your number and go file a restraining order. It sounds like she's unhinged, and you're worried about your family's safety. At the very least, if they deny that, make sure you issue a letter of no trespassing so she can't come to your home. If she violates that, then you should have enough grounds to get the restraining order. You could even use her own words against her. Tell her she's welcome to take you to court, but until then, do not contact you under any circumstances. If she wants mediation, she can take you to court. That will not end well for her. Johnny Skidmarks not only change the phone number, but completely ghost her. Don't reply to anything she does to contact you. The courts aren't going to side with her over this. She sounds completely crazy. Update, I posted this all on Thursday when I was going through a serious amount of turmoil. Since then, I've calmed down a lot and also had the good sense to talk this over with the important people in my life. First things first, I'd like to thank everyone for the words of encouragement and support that were given. There were some surprising insights from many of the posters, and I found myself agreeing with and appreciating many of the stories of support that were posted by others. I now get that I'm not the only one with a controlling, selfish, easily ticked-off parent. To all the folks who blamed me for being a victim of my mom and somehow thought it was my fault, well, I want to use some strong words, but I'll just ask you to please think about how lucky your life has been that you haven't gone through what I have. So on to the update. Turns out only 2 states in the whole country have made grandparents' rights official, California and New York, and I do live in New York. Basically, in New York, a grandparent doesn't automatically get to see their grandkids, but they do have the right to file a petition to be heard in family court. The petition can get shot down, but they can still file it. I do want to circle back to this later. I talked with a family law attorney on Friday, and he helped me understand the situation and come up with a plan. He was nice enough not to ask for a retainer unless and until I get served with legal papers. He basically said that the grandparent does have the right to file a petition based on their previous relationship with the grandkids, but that she would most likely not win against 2 married parents who are both making decisions for their kids' health and safety. He told me that in NY, just wanting to end the relationship probably wouldn't hold up in court. But if we bring up some of the specific things she's done over the last few years, like alienating family members, using adult humor around kids, losing her temper, hoarding cats, and driving dangerously, we would very likely win in court. He explained that the good thing is that we had already limited our kids' time with my mom to about once a month, and that in his experience, he had never seen a court order for grandparent visitation more often than once a month. for 1 hour per session. I tried to be reasonable, so I said, okay, the worst-case scenario is supervised status quo. I did bring up the topic of a restraining order, and I was quickly educated on how that works. Despite the Reddit lawyers who all assured me that I can automatically get a restraining order, well, I hate to say that you're all completely wrong. An order of protection has to be accompanied by some facilitating act of domestic violence. Because I've only been harassed and alarmed by words, I can't be granted a restraining order, period. However, if my mom causes some disorderly act like coming to my house and causing a ruckus, that could trigger an order if, and only if I document it by having the police come and detailing a report. So, keep that in mind next time you recommend a restraining order. They're not easy to get. The attorney recommended that I send a private cease and desist to my mom via certified mail and email. I decided to write a 2-page brutal takedown of this woman to blow off some steam and document in writing my concerns and try to get ahead of her legal maneuvering. I decided to take a two-pronged approach. First, I send this cease and desist to her on Friday at lunchtime via email and also certified mail. Then, I took a page out of her playbook and publicly scorched the earth to apply social pressure to her. I emailed and texted every single member of my extended family, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, my stepfather, my father, and spoke to several of them to tell them exactly what was happening. Whether they wanted to hear it or not, I sent them intimate details of my mom's abuse and my decision to cut her off for the welfare of myself and my family. My reasoning there is simple. My mom's abuse thrives in closed doors and embarrassed silence. For 30 years I've had to hear, oh, that's just the way your mom is, while people just stood by and let her act in the most insane and violent ways you can imagine. Last year, my mom got angry at my stepdad and tried to run him over with her car, then crashed her car into the front door of his business, screaming at him and ranting and raving in public. Do you know what people did? They surely called the police or an ambulance and had her monitored for her safety, right? No. My sister quickly threw her into her car and drove her away so that she wouldn't get arrested. My stepdad was so embarrassed that he took the crashed car, drove it to a parking spot, and then paid out of pocket for the damage to the front of his business. This is what happens in families that are dealing with a crazy person. They cover it up, hoping that it will someday get better. Well, I'm not cool with this anymore. I sought to publicly embarrass and pressure her for a change. Anyway, by Friday afternoon, my mom got the message and sent me emails telling me that I can stop attacking her and badmouthing her to my family. She indicated that she would abandon any legal efforts to seek visitation with my kids. This was a relief, but to be honest, I was almost looking forward to having a public forum to describe her antics at court. Nevertheless, it seems like she's backing off for the moment. The fallout and damage to my extended family is most likely severe and permanent. However, my wife and I talked about this a lot and have decided that this is the direction we're going in. We'll just have to have holidays by ourselves if the family can't be loyal and supportive to me. On to the last point, and I really want to drive this home. In 1991, my mom conducted an incredibly vicious divorce against my dad. I mean, she literally sought to destroy him, and she did. He was totally crushed by her. One of the things my dad mentioned just this weekend was that back then, my grandparents on his side tried to get guaranteed time with us after the divorce. My mom actually took it to court over this, arguing that as the custodial mom, she alone got to decide who we were around. The court decided that grandparents didn't have a right to see us, and my mom managed to keep me away from my loving, happy grandparents for years. I could only see them when I was with my dad during court-ordered visits. The law in New York changed in 2000 to include grandparents' rights, but it was too late to help me. I want to really emphasize this. The sheer audacity of this woman to go to court and claim that as the custodial mom, she had the final say on our relationships, and then 35 years later, try to use the new law to claim grandparents' rights, going against both parents' wishes, was just too much for me. That alone made me say, no way, not on my watch. So that's the update. Yeah, it's long-winded, but it feels good to get this off my chest. I'm finally able to share the unbearable shame and embarrassment of what happened to me with my family, and I won't let myself be ignored anymore. I'm 41 and my selfish, insane baby boomer asshole of a mom is in her mid-70s and has no power over me anymore. I'm sick of keeping this bottled up. Anyone who doesn't like it, they can go suck an egg. I deserve to have loyal and faithful people in my life. Comments Askell, isn't her case now public record? If she believes that only custodial parents should dictate a child's relationship with extended family. Isn't that something a lawyer can look up and use? Oop, I've kicked off the FOIL request at the family court where the divorce went down, but man, this is gonna take forever to get those records. I might go through them just to get a better grip on my family's past. Practical Chess 2313 man, I am so unbelievably glad that you stood up for yourself, and that you and your wife are united in standing up to your extended family. That's not easy to do. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, but abusers are so good at making you believe that you're the one exception. Maruchan_wanton, exactly, and good job, op. From my own personal experience, it can be tough to cut a toxic, abusive person out of your life. So many people follow the same path as their parents. It makes me happy to hear that you are raising your children the complete opposite of how she raised you. By limiting contact and going NC, you are not only protecting yourself, but also your children. No one should have to endure that, and I'm so sorry that you did, but be proud of the fact that you and your wife are ending that cycle. Berlin Black Tea, in NY, the burden of proof for a TRO is high. Why so many jump to that thinking they give things out like that freely? You wouldn't want a system that allows that. Being made uncomfortable is not grounds for TRO. And in a dysfunctional family, where abuse is chronic and lifelong, but rarely enough to cause arrest, people who exhibit controlling and abusive behavior know what they can and cannot get away with legally in most cases, and have enablers that hide behind their silence and shame. It is frustrating. Unless minors are witnesses to the behavior. CPS acts on this quickly. TROs are usually granted then. Parents can be faulted for failure to protect if they do not shield the children from a relative's behavior. The culture has changed in this regard from the 80s and 90s. What matters now is the future. Protect your kids and get yourself into therapy. You're breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma and you're doing the work. But you've also got to heal that inner child of yours who was never listened to, loved, valued, or protected by your primary caregiver, your mom. It's going to be tough and take some time, but if you really commit to the therapy, it'll help you heal and become the best, healthiest version of yourself, both as a person and as a parent, and you'll finally feel mentally free. Good luck to you. Knitted Yeti, this totally crazy woman made me visit my own dad at a McDonald's for 2 hours every 2 weeks when we were kids, as the court ordered, while she sat outside in a running car. I'm trying to wrap my head around why the courts only gave my dad 2 hours every 2 weeks. On what basis? Probably because my mom fed them a bunch of lies that made my dad seem abusive and uncaring. I dated a guy whose ex was even worse. She wouldn't schedule regular visits. She'd just call with an hour's notice, and if he wasn't available, she'd tell the kids he didn't love them enough. It took him years and a ton of money to sort out the court custody stuff. Sadly, it really strained our relationship. It's hard to come second to an ex's drama, and we had to keep our relationship under wraps or she'd cut him off from his kids. He had 2 kids and always put them first, but the constant cancellations were too much, and it was really her fault. As his friend, though, I was happy when everything was finalized, and to see him settled with a nice girlfriend now. Mountain Guava 2877, cases like that are why co-parenting apps are a lifesaver. No more lies about who agreed to what or when. Everything's documented and time-stamped.